Okay. Welcome. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. All good. All good. All good. So I think let's get started. So first, welcome everyone to the third episode of our Thought Leadership series. A very warm welcome, and let's just share the objective behind this Thought Leadership series. The Thought Leadership series we are running has three objectives. One, to learn and interact with interesting people like Tom, which I'll introduce and talk about. The second, also to learn about the ethos and guiding principles of leadership. And third, something which is very core and I'm really passionate about is to talk more around data and AI and how it's impacting their respective organizations and industry. So with this, I think without ado, I think let's start it. Tom, it's pleasure to have you. Maybe if you can introduce yourself.
Yep. I'm Tom Johnson. I lead the procurement function at HF Sinclair, based in Dallas, Texas. My responsibilities include the master data function, which obviously we are grateful to have Verdantis as a partner.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for our partnership actually. And I think look forward to great years. So I think introducing myself, my name is Kumar. I'm the CEO for Verdantis. We've been in this space, the master data, for almost 20 years. And one of the vision we have is to become an AI super agent for master data. So less about us, now moving towards more about HF Sinclair. Now people may not know about HF Sinclair, just a brief introduction. It is a diversified energy company based in Dallas with operating across US with over 7 complex refineries and have production facilities in Canada and Netherlands. They have over 5,000 people and export to more than 80 countries. They are a vertically integrated operations from a refining to midstream to marketing. So I think let's get started. So Tom, I have a first question and maybe interesting one. HF Sinclair, whole Frontier and Sinclair. Maybe if you can talk more about how did these two companies came together? What is the vision? What's the rationale? And what are the growth drivers for the next few years?
Yeah, sure. The combination of the two companies that occurred a few years ago, in its simplest terms, allowed us to grow each of our business units. If you set the lubes business aside and you think about refining, midstream, and renewables, the Sinclair organization had similar assets. So it allowed us to grow our footprint there. I think the one
Okay.
thing that I would call out as being maybe the crown jewel in the Sinclair portfolio is the brand.
Oh,
Very few people knew Holly Frontier as a brand unless you were in the wholesale market. But everyone seems to know the Sinclair dyno, particularly in the Western United States. So it really allowed us to increase our brand identity, but also to get that much closer to the end market and partner with owners of local convenience stores.
oh, okay. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And what are the thought process around growing next in next few years? What are drivers as an organization?
Yeah, we're measured with our growth. Certainly, I would tell you the last few years we've been very focused on ourselves, meaning operating the assets that we have more predictably, and that comes
Okay.
really more around reliability. And so we just think about what you guys do for us in terms of master data. That's one element of how can we become more organized and better operate the assets we have.
Mhm. Mhm.
That said, we'll obviously look in the marketplace, but I would say for the past few years and probably for the short term, we're very focused on trying to operate what we have as best as possible.
Okay, okay, okay. So the one thing that comes to my mind, Tom, when I hear about any energy company is focus around, cleaner fuels. Okay, I think there's a lot of discussions around, and I think day before yesterday, I was hearing a lot of CEOs talking about carbon capture. A lot of things people are trying to do, at least to cap the emissions. Okay, and I remember there's something around renewable fuels in the HF Sinclair. Is that a priority? What is the thought process around that?
Yeah, so we entered the renewable business around the COVID timeline, and
Okay.
we spent upwards of $1 billion converting one facility and building a grassroots facility at one of our existing refineries in New Mexico. So we went all in with renewable diesel. We're one of the largest producers in the U.S. And so for us, it was complementing a larger portfolio. To your point earlier about some of the things we can do in terms of emissions or those sorts of things, obviously we have a keen focus on where can we invest, obviously to optimize, but at the same time recognizing that our business is producing fuels, right? So it's a mix there. Ultimately, with the Sinclair acquisition, we increased our portfolio of renewable fuels as well. So outside of that, obviously a lot of announcements in the industry around that space. So it's something we'll continue to monitor, and we certainly will be curious to see growth there over the next few years.
Oh, okay. Awesome, awesome. No, no. Anyways, I think that's one of the areas in general, whether you talk about consumer or the enterprise leaders or the CEOs, they are very bullish because the government wants it to happen, whichever way, whether, and I think it's a better way of doing it rather than, managing emissions, which I'm not sure it's a real, because there's a lot of, at least what I've read and interacted, it's, nobody's clear what is the right way of doing it, emissions. There are a lot of technology flowing it. Okay, so I think good, good, good. I think next thought I was just thinking, Tom. So why don't you tell about your stay in HF Sinclair? How long you've been staying? How's your experience so far?
Yeah, so I joined the organization just over 8 years ago. Really an opportunity to come in and help mature the procurement process here. The function had always existed. It historically had been a little more administrative. So the one thing I would tell you, Kumar, is that we're probably most proud of in terms of the last few years is really showing procurement as an enabler, bringing value to the company. Obviously, transactional work or administrative work is necessary, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, obviously, around AI journey a little bit later. But being a strong business partner and putting folks closer to the business, having a seat at the table, being part of large business decisions in terms of where we go is something I think we're most proud of. And today the group's around 100 or so. Really, only a third of those in a corporate office. The 2/3 of those are embedded in the business unit. So we're very proud of the fact that they sit side by side. Their folks produce or work, particularly with plant operation. The term we use all the time is we don't make money in corporate, we make money at our sites. And so we try to keep that in mind. We try to keep that in mind, obviously, but also be there to support their needs.
But this is, I think, Tom, I've interacted with so many leaders and seen so many organizations. It takes it's not easy to be a enabler and a partner in the organization. Typically, otherwise, you end up only being a procurement function, just buying, not an enabler. So I think it is a lot about how do you lead. So I think that's where my next thought was: how do you define your leadership? How do you think? Because I have seen you in the last few years. So maybe if you can talk about your leadership style, or how do you think?
Yeah. Well, so I'd call two things out. One, I believe empowering folks, pulling the right folks and developing those folks in the organization is really important. So developing and ensuring that we partner with others, we work with others. That's very important. So I really look at my role as helping enable my group, getting and the tools that they need. Obviously, things like technology, what you do for us, that's a good example of, do we have the right tools in place for people to be successful in their roles? So at the end of the day, if you look over that 8 or 9 years, I've had a number of folks that join the organization and have grown their personal careers. So that's something I think myself and leadership team are really proud of.
That's awesome. So actually, so in a nutshell, you're saying empowerment is important. I think that's what you have seen people, and giving them a career and making them feel that it's progressing is important, which is right. I have also seen that. It's and what happened, Tom. Lot of leaders talk about it, but it's not easy to practice. I can tell you, it's not easy to practice. So hats off to you. Hats off to you.
Well,
On this part, I
one
think.
thing, one
Yeah.
one thing
Yeah.
I would add there, Kumar, if you think about what occurred during COVID when we had all sorts of supply chain challenges,
Yes.
um, a lot of folks had never seen that before in their career. So it
Yeah.
really an opportunity for people to really think through business decisions and use their skills. So I would also call that out as maybe a catalyst in things over the last few years.
But that's so. I think it's how do you use the opportunity? So Tom, right? It was a black swan event. Nobody anticipated it. It just happened. Some people used it in the best way, and some people probably struggle. But because we're talking about COVID times, a lot has changed. So I think we've been hearing a lot about work from office, work from home, and all that debate, right? Now, and I believe that by having a right balance between professional and personal is not easy, and that in a leadership role. So how do you ensure that you have both personal fulfillment and a professional growth? Any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing I would tell you is we were probably one of the first organizations in our industry to have folks back in the office. We were back pretty early. And even
Okay.
today, the majority of folks are on premises. We don't have as much remote work. That said, I would tell you it's about balance. So, you can't expect folks to be in office 80 hours a week and not have a personal balance. And so we really try to ensure that roles, don't have too much in terms of um, expectation around things that are maybe unreasonable. Now, that said, we're in a 24/7 business. So we have a problem at a facility, a phone can ring on Friday night or Saturday morning. And the one thing I would say is I think the team understands that dynamic. And I appreciate how they jump in and contribute when sometimes it might not be the most optimal in their personal lives.
That's cool actually. And a lot of your team actually works on the not in the corporate office also, right? The that's also says actually because most of the people have come back, so it's important to maintain a right balance, right? It would be
Yeah,
60
what
40. Yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, I think having folks work in the operational facility at some point in their career gives them a sense of urgency that they may not have if they just sit in a corporate
Uh,
office. They just sit at home. So, whether that experience is 6 months or 6 years or a third of their career, just having that experience and understanding what it's like and what happens when it occurs and how you respond to that is something that's very hard to teach. You have to experience it.
that's amazing actually. That's a good. So you're saying, so is there a so all your team members goes through that, or it just it's a natural progression, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's not 100%, but I would say the large majority have.
Okay.
Whether they're an external hire or they're someone we've hired and we've developed them over time, um, large majority of them have been through that at some point. Really, when you think about leadership level, almost all of those have in some form or fashion. Again, it may not be in oil and gas; it might have been in consumer goods or other areas. But you just think about continuous operation, and what I'd say is a very high cost of downtime that
Uh,
builds kind of the same frame of mind in terms of how you need to react in the support function.
No, that's very true. That's true. And that can only once that you only know once you have experience it. Otherwise, it's difficult to teach. You're right, actually. Yeah. Now switching gears, Tom, I think let's like talk about procurement, something you're really passionate. So a very cliche but important question, at least I have, is in your view, what has changed after COVID in terms of the procurement?
Well, in the procurement world for years, we preached leverage, a smaller supply base, do everything you can to shrink that population, right? Four suppliers, one is always better than four. Well,
Yes.
COVID taught us that maybe one isn't a good idea sometimes.
Yes.
So in the simplest terms, if you think about all the challenges we all had personally of when we went to the supermarket or we went to get a product or we went to Amazon and it wasn't available, um, we had the same issues in the business world. And in many cases, we had demand that was off the chart. Towards the end of COVID, everything we produced, we could sell. Well, the problem was is we might not have been able to get a package or a particular chemical, or I'm giving you different scenarios there. But the point is it taught us to be more nimble. The
Yeah.
other thing I would tell you is if you're my direct supplier, I might have pretty good insight into to your operation, but I don't have good insight into your supplier's operation.
Yeah.
And so where we started to see experience is the space to where we didn't have visibility and perhaps our supplier didn't have maybe the level of rigor or
Yes.
ask the same level of questions. And so in many cases, that's where we ran into challenges is the stuff we couldn't see. So we'd call that like a second tier supply chain.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Being nimble and actually having a right visibility around second tier suppliers actually. So have you done something around it specifically? You took a lot of
You
initiatives.
know, the technology that's available isn't the best. If anything, I've challenged my team. You just have to ask questions. When you think about your supplier relationship management and you ask about their continuity of supply or their planning, how to manage their own suppliers, it's really asking questions. And in many cases, it may be bringing that secondary supplier to the table. But I go back to my earlier point when you think about one source of supply versus two or three, in some cases where it's a critical operation or it might have complex logistics associated with it. If you remember, we had a very short port strike in the U.S. here a month
Yes.
or so ago, and so that was a scenario where we said, oh, if we had something coming from Europe versus say Asia, what would that look like in terms of our day-to-day operation? So COVID, I would say, was the black swan. But if you think about everything from weather events to transportation issues, um, geopolitical challenges. So the war in
Yes.
Ukraine actually ended up being similar to COVID in terms of just supply chain challenges there as well. So I'm proud of the fact that the team is more nimble now. Taught us a lot. And if anything, I think we handle those challenges better now. We think through them versus just reacting. What do I do? But yeah, to your point earlier, I mean, the days of let me just leverage and simplify, that might not be the default answer anymore.
That's true. That's true, actually. And recently, we were talking to a similar oil and gas company, and they were thinking about vendor consolidation. And one of the CPOs said that maybe it's not a strategy. We should not do. It's a good one on a paper, but unless and until doing in the right spirit, otherwise it can be counterproductive. So I think yeah, they're right actually. That's so now, Tom. So this is about the COVID 4 years back. What about the future actually? What are the how you see the overall procurement transformation happening in the next few years? How do you see what are the new things you are doing in the procurement domain?
Yeah, so in a general sense, what we are trying to do is simplify our work process. And what I mean by that is if you just think about the large ERPs or the multitude of systems and work processes that you have in a large company, in many cases they're complex, they're cumbersome, it's tough for people to get work done. So in a general sense, what we're trying to do is simplify.
Mhm.
Now, to really the purpose of the conversation here, when you start to think about AI and how that fits into to the situation, I say AI potentially helping us in a number of areas. Now, I think the jury may still be out on how quickly those things come into
Yeah.
play. But in terms of, say, day to day procurement work, whether that's cutting POs or negotiating contracts, really what we're starting to talk about is where do we see use cases? Where are there examples of where AI might be able to help streamline that work process? Now, I'm very clear, and I've been clear with my team, that we will always need critical thinkers. So it's not going to change necessarily the need for people. It'll change the need for skills of those people.
Yeah. Yes.
So and if you just think about it in a holistic perspective, less transactional, more strategic. Now that said, when I think about master data and what you guys do, you've used versions of AI and say material master cleansing for a long time, right? And I think you can talk about how that's evolved. As I look at master data, I question, let's say, the supplier space. There's a lot of work that goes into maintaining and cleansing suppliers. I give you an example of, say, a number of those where we might have 50 different plus supplier records for technically one company. Um, there's a lot of work involved in maintaining that, and I can see AI long term really allowing us to streamline that, and that gives me the opportunity to put those resources on what I'd consider to be more complex activities in the organization. So we're really excited about how it might transform the work. Uh, the end of the day, a lot of people don't like transactional work. They like work where it's critical thinking and they can
Yes.
they can have variety. So my belief is that we can take some of those tasks, we can use AI, um, and then we can free up their time to work, uh, activities that'll generate a larger return on investment for the company.
That's cool, actually, Tom. And I think that was my next question, but I think you simply highlighted the value of AI and your belief, actually. And I'll just talk about maybe a minute on this. I agree. At Verdantis, we are quite bullish on AI. We believe in AI. And as I said, our vision is to be an AI super agent for master data. And I think, like you said, in the material space, we've been there for 20 years and we have seen this transformation. Okay, so I'll give an example just from a numbers piece. Something which used to take us maybe something 16 weeks or 18 weeks to deliver that project. It moved earlier, leveraging ML to 8 weeks, and now we are expecting to do it in 3-4 weeks. That includes human interventions, validation and all. That's a value of AI. And second, this is just one operational efficiency. The second element is a lot of things which were not possible, like we're thinking about how do you do the real-time enrichment of data. Okay, the information is lying in the lot of space catalogs which are publicly available, but how do you go and look for that, or people doing manually trying to pick up things and just doing that. Can we revolutionize? Yes, we have seen that happening. So yeah, I agree. I think it's a journey. It will not happen tomorrow. But I think for your belief, because still a lot of people say that it is not there. I think not on the technology at all, but it's more on people's belief. Maybe the use cases are still not clear. That's the case. Okay, so I think Tom, another question I have is more because I think we are top of the bar. A question around what would be your advice, because you've spent so many years in procurement and now leading at HF Sinclair. For the, what's your advice for the bud procurement specialist, especially both from the technology and leadership? Just a few words on that.
Yeah, look, my general message is don't be afraid of change. And what I mean by
That's
that
not
is if
easy, Tom. That's not
yeah,
easy.
yeah, I mean none of us like change, right?
Yes,
But
yes,
as we think about you and I grew up in the dot-com era, right? So we lived
yeah.
through the change that occurred with the internet. And the end of the day, there's still in for our roles, but our roles look different. And communication got faster, got easier, right? And so as I just look at procurement today, in my mind, there's still too much transactional work where that value add could be put somewhere else. And so your example that you gave of being able to minimize the time of data cleansing, my belief is, again, examples of things like contract management or supplier cleansing, we can do that quicker. And we may be able to do it with a machine, which means those folks can go do other activities. So there will always be a need for procurement and supply chain folks. Our business partners will always have a need. And so, what I challenge new leaders with is how can you fill that void in spite of what may happen with technology and in spite of, in a good way, obviously. But it kind of comes back to, compartmentalizing the anxiety there and using that to make your job more efficient, right?
No, no, I think you said it right, Tom. Change is constant, and I think it's about embracing it and going. And it is going to happen. Whether we get anxiety to accept it or embrace it, but it's going to happen. So I think we have to live with it. And I think one of the things, because you talked about, I at least believe on this, Tom. A lot of reports has been, a lot of discussions happening around whether is the lot of investment happening around AI is relevant or not. In my personal view, what I understand is I think it is not like advent of a .com. It's going to be like electricity. How electricity has impacted our lives, that integral. That's how life, the impact of AI will be. And it's a transformation one. That means that when it's so many years, we'll see some spots of growth as well as, then lull. So, we have to there. It's a journey. It's not going to happen. So I think thank you for that. I think really appreciate. Any closing comments, Tom, on this? Your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think at this point I'm in a bit of a wait and see, but I also there are examples out there today.
Mhm.
So for us, I think we're starting to put what we'd say are use cases together, and whether that journey starts in 6 months or in 3 years, um, I think it's an exciting time, and it's something we have to keep people focused on the what the change means, and certainly not all change is bad.
Yeah. No, no, I think thank you, Tom. I think Thank you for your time and for our insightful discussion. I'll just say one thing. I think our discussion is a more of a powerful reminder that how vital it is for the organizations to invest both technology and leadership to embrace innovation. Okay. And I think whether you talk about master data or procurement, or whether you talk about, lead through the, the sense of purpose, it's all the people who will change and adapt will move forward. So I think, thank you. I think really appreciate it. Good. I think we're good with this.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kumar.
Tom.
Good
Thank
to
you,
talk.
everyone. We
Yep.
look forward
Thank
to
you.
seeing again. Yeah. Bye. See ya.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye
See ya.
bye.